y'all. Welcome back to another episode. This is Marriage Made Possible, where we believe all things are possible, including happy and great marriages.
That's right.
I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Troy. Hey, we want to thank you guys for tuning in with us again. We are excited to be back another week. So, if you didn't catch last week's video, just kind of want to run down what you missed. Three things that we believe can help make any marriage possible. Now, these are not the three things.
Yeah,
The
they're
end
not the
all.
only three things.
There's other things, but we just want to say that these particular three things helped us, and that was counseling, accountability, and self awareness.
hmm Yeah, and with that counseling, that was individual counseling and then also couples counseling too.
That's right.
So this week I'm excited
Yeah.
because, in our conversation last week, when we were talking about self awareness, I feel like it kind of sparked a new conversation
Mm-hmm.
that we can have around the topic of triggers.
Mm.
And triggers, it's one of those buzzwords right now, like in society, period, and then
Yeah.
also, especially in the counseling world.
Mm-hmm.
But just triggers. So
Yeah.
your triggers, my triggers, and then our triggers together. So it's like yours, mine's, and ours.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yours, mine, and ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Triggers. We're not talking about kids. Yeah. Well, I think that's awesome. So we are diving into, is this going to be one episode series?
No, so this will be like the next couple weeks that we'll be
Mhm.
talking about triggers because I feel like there are so many layers to triggers. Like I
There
said,
are.
like individual,
Mm-hmm.
triggers together as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
How we can learn how to identify our triggers.
Mm-hmm.
How should we respond and communicate? Like how can we communicate our needs to one another
Right.
when we feel triggered? So it'll definitely span over the next couple weeks for sure.
Okay. So as we're jumping into this topic about triggers, where do we want to begin?
So like at the beginning of our relationship, because we didn't have any type of self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and in certain areas of our life, I feel like it made things more difficult than it had to be.
So you said at the beginning of our relationship we lacked self-awareness.
Mhm.
So are you suggesting that self-awareness is a good jumping off point in regards to talking about triggers?
Yeah, absolutely. So self-awareness is vital to the health of your relationship.
Okay.
Well, actually, let me backtrack. So self-awareness is vital to like you as an individual person,
Mm-hmm.
and then also it's vital to the health of the marriage and the relationship. So when I say self-awareness, I'm talking about not like this, oh, my favorite color is blue and I don't like spicy food. Like
I thought that was it. I was like, I'm
No.
self-aware. I know.
It's not that type of self-awareness. It's really knowing yourself and having an understanding of how you respond to external circumstances.
Mm,
What are you inclined to think like when a situation arises, like what are you inclined to think? How would you normally act, right?
mhm.
Without any type of like self-control or, positive thinking or anything like that. Like, how would you respond normally to a situation? What are your patterns of
Mm.
thinking, your patterns of behavior?
Okay.
What are some of the things that, trigger you? What are topics or people or environments that may trigger you or make you respond out of an emotional way?
Wow, that's big. And as I'm just sitting here listening to you talk, the more that you kind of peel away the layers of self-awareness, the more that I realize that a lot of people have no idea how to be self-aware and they have no idea what self-awareness is. And I think a prime example of that is oftentimes when people get pushed to the edge or to the limit and they look back behind them and the dust settles and they're like,
Like, why did I respond that way?
right,
Right.
I can't believe I did that.
Mhm.
I didn't think I would react that way. Or
Yeah.
people around them are like, I had no idea they were capable of that.
Right. Yeah. And now, and when you're saying that, it makes me think of the importance of your single season and why you
Mm,
shouldn't rush, that time in your life before you meet your spouse.
ouch.
Yeah, because that's really a time where you can use to become more self aware, where you can work on yourself. Now, I'm not saying like you do all that work in your single season when you're not in a relationship and you get in a relationship and you're never going to have issues with your spouse, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because that's anybody that's married knows that that's not true. But in your single season, it gives you time to identify and then heal
Mm-hmm.
maybe from some of the things from your past
Okay.
that could potentially cause unnecessary conflict or
Mm.
struggle within the relationship.
Wow. That's big.
Hmm.
Um, so self-awareness is important.
Yeah, it's vital. Absolutely.
Wow.
Hmm.
Um, honestly, I know we threw it out there last week, but until we actually really started working on it and really being intentional with self-awareness, it wasn't even on my radar.
Nope.
It wasn't
Yeah.
something I was thinking about. And when I think about self-awareness, something that I kind of like to say is it's really about taking your gaze and turning it inward.
Hmm.
So it's not looking at myself in the mirror, the man in the mirror, how many moles do I have, where, how many gray hairs. Like self-awareness is really taking your thoughts, is really taking
And
your gaze.
examining yourself.
Right, your heart, ooh, why did that hurt? Why
Hmm.
why did I react that way?
Hmm.
Why did when she said that I thought this, or why when she didn't answer the phone I felt some kind of way.
Right.
It's really
Yeah.
taking, time and evaluating yourself and your responses to things and how certain things make you feel the way they feel, what the way you feel, and the why. It's really the why behind the what.
Right. So it's identifying the what and then it's identifying the why,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that for me, that took me what 3 years to learn.
Mm.
Because you continue to peel back the layers,
Right.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think had we started earlier with this idea of becoming more self-aware and really knowing what our triggers were and why,
Mm-hmm.
I think that things could have been different at the beginning, but because we really wasted a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
because we lacked self-awareness, and that really made us stay in like this crazy cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So when things were good, they were good,
Right. They
right?
were
Like we're
great.
happy, date night, going on
Mm-hmm.
trips, whatever. They
Mm-hmm.
were good. But when we got caught up in that crazy cycle to where
Mm-hmm.
maybe I was triggered
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you were triggered,
Mm-hmm.
and then we just we didn't know how to respond
Mm-hmm.
or support the other person, it really got us caught up in a cycle of
Right.
responding the same way.
Yeah. And you know what I would say is that first of all, learn from our mistakes. We're telling you self-awareness is important. It's a thing. It's something that you need to be tracking on your radar.
Hmm.
Um, so kind of as we're walking through this assessment of self-awareness, what's something that you discovered about yourself, or
Yeah, so something I've discovered about myself is number one, I'm a processor.
okay.
So I need time to process my emotions so
Mm-hmm.
that, for me, what I needed to help me show up better in the marriage was time alone with
Mm.
God, journaling, my physical health,
Mm-hmm.
was important. Like I needed my time to work out and,
Mm-hmm.
feel good about myself. Just having a balance, like a work home life
Mm-hmm.
balance was important to me too. So all those different things helped me to show up better in the relationship. I would say something else that helped me was really considering what you were saying about me
Mm-hmm.
and not just like brushing it off. But
Mm.
once again, I think I talked about it in one of the other videos. Like the turnaround for me was when I actually considered what he was saying about me was true.
Mm.
And that's when it turned around. Like he, like, dang, am I really that way? Do I really
Mm-hmm.
respond that way? Do I really have this issue? And when I gave myself the opportunity to at least consider what he was saying was true, that's when I was able to become more self-aware.
Yeah, and I kind of want to speak to that topic when we're talking about saying something to your spouse. Anytime we're saying something to them, we should be saying it in love.
Yeah,
So it's not from a
speak the truth
standpoint,
in love.
right, the truth and love. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not from a standpoint of I'm trying to tear her down or she's trying
Mm-hmm.
to tear me down. It might simply be something that I recognize that she's
Right.
doing that she may not see herself, and
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. She may recognize or see something that I'm doing and I may not recognize it myself. And so when your spouse brings that to you, you need to be able to take a second, and this is a great time to implement self-awareness and
Mm-hmm.
say, you know, hey, is that me? Can you see yourself? Instead of always pointing and saying, no, you did
Or
this,
you're
or
making me do this.
right, you're
Yeah.
making me feel, nope, be an adult, take some responsibility and say, you know what, hey, you know, like my wife said, she's a processor. I'm an action person. I want to fix it. Most men are. We want to fix the problem. We want to fix the situation. Especially with my background, military background, we got to do. You know, boots on the ground. Let's go. We got to fix. We got to dip it in the bud now. Fix this problem. Well,
It
Jazz is,
didn't work for me.
yeah, that didn't work for my
Yeah.
wife. She's a processor. I'm an action person. So these are examples of how self awareness can be important so that you know, well, I know now that my wife is a processor, so I have to watch how I approach her
Mm-hmm.
in certain things. Sometimes she needs time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm looking for an answer, right or left, A or B, is it black or white? For her,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit more gray,
Yeah.
and I want to answer right now because I'm an action person. So when you learn what kind of person you are,
Yes.
when you learn how you react to certain
Yeah.
things, it's better for your marriage because you
Right.
know how do I need to respond? How do I need to position myself? One more thing I want to jump into that you said is what I gathered from everything that you said is when am I at my best? When
Mm-hmm.
am I at my best? And so underneath self awareness, we can add self care. We can
Mm-hmm.
add self assessment. When am I at my best? Well, I'm at my best when I've had time to work out, when I've had time to release, when I've had, for some of you, that's journaling. My wife is a journaler. Some of you, you got to come home, you got to take a bubble bath.
Mm-hmm.
Some of you got to go play around the golf. Others of you got to go fix on the car. You got to build something around the house. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when you're at your best. That's
Mm-hmm.
your self care. You have to eat a certain way so you feel better. For me, I got to get in the Word. I got to read the Bible because if I don't, I'm not a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get in there and and use the Word as a guide that reminds me, hey, you know, walk in love, walk in kindness, be, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just simple everyday basic stuff. I need to work out. I need to have some time to decompress when I get home from
Mm-hmm.
work. So these are things that as you're walking down this journey of self-awareness, you learn about yourself and then you also learn about your spouse and you realize now might not be the best time to approach him about this.
Right. Or have a particular conversation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think that's really good. So self-awareness is definitely vital to the health of your relationship, and it also helps you communicate
Mm-hmm.
better with your spouse. Because if you are aware of what you need,
Mm-hmm.
and that was something I had to learn, like what are my needs right now? What do I need as an
Mm-hmm.
individual person? And is this something that my husband can fulfill? Right? Is this a need that he can fulfill?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this something that I need to take to God and let God fulfill this need for me? So I think it's better to always take those, especially those emotional needs, to God first, take it to
Mm-hmm.
Him first. And that was something that helped me, was to take whatever issue I had,
Mm-hmm.
take it to God first, filter it through God first, through the, with me, I would pray it out or either journal it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it was still bothering me, or if it, was something that I needed to talk to my husband about, then I'm able to approach him better in a different way
Mm-hmm.
that will help us to have more, effective communication versus if I had just brought it to you out of a particular attitude.
That's good, babe.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, we kind of talked about what self awareness is, and we've kind of already dove into it. And this is why is self awareness so important.
Mm-hmm.
And something that you just said that's so good is you learned when when you should bring certain things to me, and I had to learn the same thing. And so, as you start to go through things and you're walking out this journey of self awareness, you start to see, okay, is this something that I need to talk about right now? Is this something I need
Right.
to pray about? Is this
Yes.
something I need to hint, talk to my accountability about before I
Yeah.
talk to my spouse? That's why it's so important to have that accountability in your life because you have that added layer of protection. It's
Right.
like, hey, before I go in this room, squeezing the trigger, shooting, I need to evaluate and say, hey, do I really need to say this? Should I say this like that? Is this even a thing? You know, maybe
Right.
maybe I need to
Because
pause.
everything doesn't have to be a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like some things are seriously so small, y'all. Like when I think back over the arguments that we've gotten into, like what do we even argue about? What are we even talking about, right? Like you're not even talking about the original issue anymore.
Right.
It's so many other things you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about. Something that I would recommend, especially for women, um, is to give it like a 3 day rule. So
Wow.
that was something that we started, I think, like year two,
Mm-hmm.
is we would give ourselves 3 days to talk about something.
Mm-hmm.
So um, if there was something that, an issue came up or whatever, I would give myself a mental 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And if in 3 days this issue was still bothering me, then I would bring it to my husband and talk to him about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that, like, over 75% of the times, by the time those 3 days were up,
Mm-hmm.
it was no longer an issue,
Right.
right? Like I had kind
Yeah.
of processed it through.
Mm-hmm.
So the 3 day rule was helpful. Another thing that was helpful for us is our check ins.
Mm-hmm.
So something that really helped us was being able to have one day a week
Mm-hmm.
where we were able to come to each other and check in with each other and talk about, if something was bothering us.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped us a lot to be able to get through the week without, having these small arguments.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love that you just brought check-ins up because I was literally just thinking that, as you're walking through this self-awareness and you're kind of gazing inward, just like my wife said, everything doesn't warrant, being talked about right now.
Mm-hmm.
Some things can wait. And
Yeah.
so something that we've implemented is check-ins. So we have check-ins every Saturday. And
Mm-hmm.
what we do is we talk about, ups, we talk about lows, we talk about highs in the marriage, we talk about low points in the marriage, ways we could improve, or, I felt like this or I felt like that. But what we discovered a lot of times is by the time we got the check-ins, the thing that we thought was a thing,
It wasn't a
it wasn't
thing.
even a thing. We were just, more or less tripping at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So check-ins are amazing, and it's kind of a way for you to, as you're on this journey of self-awareness within your marriage, kind of a way to assess yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Is this, on the flip side, some things are important and some things you need to talk about like
Absolutely.
ASAP, like as
Yeah.
soon as possible.
Yeah. But even with that, you still want to, we still have built in, I think, over the years, just these cushions to help us have self control and not to approach the other person the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
So even if there is something that we need to talk about right away,
Mm-hmm.
we will still give ourselves an hour, right?
Right.
So we're engaging in a conversation and something is bothering us or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We get to a place where we can't resolve whatever issue it is. We give ourselves an hour. So he'll go away for an hour. If I need to go away for an hour, we'll go cool down and then we'll come back and talk
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Yeah, so that's another big part of self-awareness. As you're on your journey of self-awareness, you need to start recognizing when you're starting to get to the point
Yes.
where the conversation is not fruitful
Right.
anymore. Like there's no good outcome in sight because I feel the type of way, you feel the type of way, and you got to say I love you enough to take care of me. And I know
Right.
that sounds weird and it sounds kind of selfish in a way, but you need to love your spouse enough to say that,
Let me go take care of me
right.
for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, I'm packing a bag and I'm leaving the house and I'm not telling you where I am. I'm turning my location off. That's not
I'm
it.
off the grid.
Right. No, like that's that's not what we're talking about. But we've set up a rule where, he can go somewhere in the house or he can even go take a drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to go somewhere. We know where the other person is going. We verbally say, okay, we need an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and we come back and we talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it didn't start that way.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't start like that. A lot
No.
of good things are the result of
the
wrong,
bad things
right?
or the wrong things
The wrong,
we've done.
right? Learning to do it the wrong way, we had to come back and say, okay, that way doesn't work. That way
Mhm.
made the situation worse. So we need to come back and we need to revamp this and do something else.
Right.
So
And it took time to build those muscles of self control up in our
Mhm.
relationship.
yeah, yeah. Very important. That's a big word that we want to kind of implement as we are on this journey of self-awareness is self-control.
Yeah.
Man, I'm reminded of the book of Proverbs, and it simply says that a person without self-control is like a city with no walls. So a city with no walls is subject to anything, any kind of attack, what anybody says or anybody does. And it's the same way when you don't have self control, you are subject to anything that your spouse says or does to you. Now, you can say, they shouldn't have said that to me. They shouldn't have did that to me. Rightfully so, but you are also responsible for how you respond to that. You're responsible for how you show up to your marriage. That's right. You're responsible for how you show up
For
to
how
your
you
marriage.
show up.
Regardless of what your spouse
Right.
does or says, they're responsible for what they do or say. Maybe she shouldn't have said that to you. Maybe she shouldn't have said that to me. But I'm responsible for how I respond back to my wife.
Right. Yeah, and in no way it means that, you're walking on eggshells and you can't
Mm-mm.
talk about, the issues of your relationship. Those things are important. You
Mm-hmm.
can't sweep the issues under the rug,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more so how you do it in your approach.
Mm-hmm.
To how you approach your spouse about a particular topic or issue within the relationship.
Yeah. And so the first point we talked about was, what is self awareness? Then we dove into the importance of self awareness. And we've kind of already jumped into this topic, but we're talking about the dangers of the lack of self awareness.
Man, just the dangers of the lack of self awareness. Definitely, I would say is ineffective communication.
Okay.
Is one of them. That's when you kind of get stuck in the crazy cycle
Mm-hmm.
where I'm not feeling respected or loved. You're not feeling respected or loved. We're
Mm-hmm.
not listening to each other,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're not effectively communicating.
Right.
With one another.
That's a dangerous place to be
Mm-hmm.
in your marriage, because you start getting on the crazy cycle, and men, we respond in a negative way, and we make our wives feel not loved, and then what do? Respond in another negative way, and they make us feel disrespected.
Disrespected,
And
right?
so women have the need to feel loved, men have the need to feel respected.
Mm-hmm.
And when you drop those guards, then
Right.
it's free game, and you're doing something that we call not fighting fair. So you are
Right.
no longer fighting fair. You're no
Mhm.
longer fighting for the marriage, but you're fighting to
Against
win.
your spouse,
Right.
and you're fighting to protect yourself. So you
Mm-hmm.
kind of go into self preservation mode,
Mm-hmm.
and you start responding emotionally. So you start saying whatever you want to say,
Mm-hmm.
you start doing whatever you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a dangerous place to be in the marriage.
Yeah, you start doing things like making always and never statements. Those are dangerous
Yeah.
responses. You always do this.
Or you
al-
never, like you never do this.
You never. Nobody always does something 100% of the time, and nobody never does anything 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I think that becoming self-aware and working on being more self-aware will really help you as an individual person, and then also it'll help the health of your marriage and your
Mm-hmm.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just some things to kind of help you be self-aware is, you can kind of, if you don't know where to start, pray about it. Lord, show me myself.
Yeah.
Show me where
And
I'm
he
at.
will, y'all. And I'm telling you, because 9 times out of 10 it's not good. It's not pretty, right? Because like nobody is perfect, and I
Mhm.
don't, you could think that you're the best person in the world,
Mhm.
and trust me, you have areas that you can still work on.
Mhm.
So when God begins to show you yourself, believe it,
Believe it.
right? Yeah, I'm a little selfish, or yeah, I think crazy. Why do I think like that? Or, why do I respond in this way? I respond emotionally, or, my emotions are up and down. My spouse don't know which version of myself they're going to get.
Mhm.
So, pray and ask God to help you to see yourself. And then also, once He start revealing those areas that you need to work on, just be honest with yourself and start working on it. It's not pretty. It's not, it's not glamorous during that time, but that's the time where you grow the most.
It's needed.
It's needed. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's much needed. So yeah, so next week I'm excited because we are going to be diving a little bit deeper into really how do we identify what our triggers are,
Mhm.
and then how do we communicate with our spouse, our needs when we're in that place when we're triggered.
Definitely. Yeah, so don't forget to tune in again next week. We want to encourage you to comment, to like, to share. Share, please. You can find us on all the socials. That's Instagram, Facebook, and right here on YouTube at Marriage Made Possible. That's at Marriage Made Possible. Man, we enjoyed our time with you
Yeah.
guys, and we look forward to seeing you again on the next one.